Good morning, quilt people. Another day, another opportunity to try and get it right and survive all the craziness of our lives right now. I know it's really difficult for a lot of us, and it's difficult for us too. This morning, John broke down crying because he was just like, I don't know how we're gonna make it through this, and I don't know either. And then we had a friend who died 2 days ago, and I haven't really dealt with that. So, you just keep going. And while I can't control what happens out there in the real world, I can somewhat control what happens in here in the studio. And so we're going to just do our best. Like I say, chin up, tits out. Let's try and make the best of it. And one thing I know for sure is that the only thing more contagious than fear is laughter. And so that's my whole goal for a lot of us, through this whole process. And I'm going to keep posting every day, and I'm going to keep being ridiculous. Because that's what I do best. And, bring you along on the journey of what I'm doing every day. This morning I made this cute little mouse, right, for a friend, and so I'll be mailing that off to you today. Bring you a little touch of joy. And then today I'm going to be working on my putting together my Arkansas Crossroads, and hopefully if I get through that, start quilting it, because that's what's up on deck next, because I don't really believe in unfinished projects and UFOs. So, as you may have seen before, my technique for putting the sandwich together in terms of the back, the batting, and the top is on this wall. And that's why I specifically created this wall in my studio for that process. And so I'm going to put up the back material first, right? And so I have the back all together, right? One of my fabrics. Ooh, I love it. Anyhow, so that goes against the wall. Like this. Oh, I haven't put the back together. What do I know? So, I'm going to put the back together, and then I'm going to put it up on the wall. Okay, so since I'm putting the back together, why don't we just do that, and kind of review my process for doing that. So, I have the fabrics here. Whenever I'm doing a long run, like putting a back together or something like that, I make sure that I pin it, right? Rather than just have the two fabrics and then just run it through the machine, because the feed dogs will ultimately pull the lower fabric through faster than the top. And so ultimately you get a little bit of a curve or something in it that I don't like that. So I'm gonna put the back together just by lining these up and then pinning it, right? And like so. And then I'll run it through the machine. Speaking of the machine, my new Juki. I'm so excited. It's like a sports car. Holy! I mean, when I first started, stepping on that pedal, I may have screamed a little. I'm not sure if it was a fear or delight. But it goes so fast, I just wasn't expecting it. Anyhow, so I'm going to just pin this together like this before I run it through the machine. And, just every few inches or so. And then I'm going to take it to the ironing board and put it together. Now, when I am putting the back together, I will do the seams open. Right? Rather than, our traditional quilting where you fold both to one side, I'll actually open that up in fashion, like what you do. And so that just helps it lay a little bit better when it's actually in the quilt. Okay? So I'm just going to finish pinning this, and then I'll show you how fast my Juki is. Okay, I have this pinned, and so I'm going to start running this through the machine. Get ready for this, and just get that going here. Ready? Cool, huh? I love it. I mean, it doesn't do anything fancy, but who needs fancy? I have my other machine for that. You can feel the power. It's the closest I'll get to a sports car. I'm not giving up my truck. All right, so for this step, I am using just a slightly larger seam allowance, so closer to 1/2 inch than 1/4, just so that I can get in there. By the way, this is the greatest thing ever invented. This little craft iron. Oh my gosh, I love this thing so much because you can just really get in there for these types of projects. All right, anything that you're doing that's relatively small. So I'm just going to keep kind of spreading these seams apart, right? And that's going to turn out nice. And then I'm going to put it up on the wall. Now, I would imagine that this goes kind of without saying. It should be, you know, obvious, but the fabric, right, the right side goes against the wall, right? Because we're making the sandwich, and then ultimately I'm going to be putting the quilt top facing out so that I can really get that exactly right. So, I have my bag of nails. I have my hammer that I keep in the studio. And then I'm just going to attach this across the top. You like my rainbow socks? Woohoo! And then next I'm going to measure my quilt top, which I'm really excited about, by the way. I really wanted to do this pattern, Arkansas Crossroads, in my fabrics, just because I thought it would lend itself really well. But let's see how big the top is here. So we're looking at, hello, other end. Okay. That is 62 by, okay, and there's a reason I'm doing this. 62 by, let's call it 75, okay? So I'm going to take that and I'm going to cut the batting just a few inches right beyond that, and then put that up on here, right, so that I can start to center everything, right? Start by centering the batting, which is then going to give me clarity on where I need to center the top, right? Because then when you're adding the third layer, like if this whole thing was covered with batting, I would be kind of coming at it blind. But if I have the batting essentially kind of centered and a good idea of how many inches I have on either side, then I can kind of center the top over that, and I have a better idea of how that's lining up, especially with the seam here hopefully being in the center once it's all together. Okay? Before I put the spray adhesive on the actual fabric, right, you end up with these long strips which I'm going to use on the floor to catch any excess spray. Okay? Also to just protect my carpet, right? Okay, so put that down, protect the carpet, and then I'm also going to want to cover my machine or put it in the other room. The overspray, the stuff that just gets into the air in general, is a real problem, okay, if you are using this type of spray adhesive. Okay, so let me finish that and then we'll put it up on the wall. Now I'm ready to spray. And to be perfectly honest, I'm doing something completely new that I've never done before. Because normally I use, you know, basing adhesive like this, right? Just normal. So they didn't have any of that, and none of the fabric stores are open. So I found this Elmer's multi-purpose spray adhesive. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm going to use it super light, right? Just to kind of get it packed up there. So let's see how that works. I'm really hoping that you can sew through this stuff. We shall see. All right. That is pretty much on there. And, oh wow. I did pretty much cover the whole fabric. So I guess my measurement of the fabric is pretty close. So let's get the top and see what that looks like once that's on there. Just to make sure, I'm gonna just do a quick check, make sure that I have enough fabric to do this. And the top side, I'm gonna use the real basting spray. Okay. Oh yeah, plenty of room. Okay, I'll be good. So, next, we're going to spray this again and then put the top on in the same manner. Okay. Okay, now I'm using the proper spray and just lightly cover. Again, you don't want a gluey kind of, mess. So this is just to lightly hold it in place and give you some coverage. Oh my God, I'm sweating to death. So this house that we bought was brand new, right? And the air conditioning, I have a casita, right? It's kind of separate from the rest of the house, its own, private entrance and things like that. But the air conditioning, when they did it, they didn't make it forceful enough in order for the AC to come into this room. Oh, thanks. So then they put up this stupid wall unit. Let's see if you can see it. Way up there. Okay? And that's all I have to cool this entire room. And so that's kind of tragic. And so I'm always, I sweat a lot naturally anyhow, but I got the irons going. It's like, whew, goodness. Anyhow, so if I'm super sweaty, please excuse me. But this is up on the wall and I think it's looking great. Right? And I also think that it shows off my fabrics really well. Let's take a little bit of a close-up. So I love this pattern, right? Because I find it super visually effective, but also it's really pretty easy, right? Any beginner can kind of do this so long as you can do flying geese and a 16 patch. Like, that's it. And people are like, will you do a pattern for that? And I'm like, it's the most simple thing in the world. Like, literally, if you can't look at this and decipher what it is, we might have a bit of a problem because look, a 16 patch, right? 16, and these are 2 inches cut, 1.5 inches finished, right? And then the neighboring block is simply 4 squares, 4 flying geese, and a 4 patch, right? So that's the way that it is. But when it comes to writing patterns and things like that, I'm sorry, but I refuse to do the paint by numbers version of, quilt design. Like, if you can't have a little bit of a hand in what color is going to go where, and what fabrics you're going to use in order to make your design awesome, right? Like, I want to just do the overall kind of, these are, the darkest colors are here, the lightest color is here, right? And then everything else is mid-tone. And so in the 16 patch, I did all of the colors with the exception of brown. And then all the browns are going on these 4 corners, right? And this 4 patch, right? And the rest of it's just blues and grays and greens. So that's it. If you still want me to write the pattern, I'm happy to, and figure out the yardage and things like that. But you probably don't really need a pattern for it, right? If you can figure that out, if you can do some flying geese, that's it. So anyways, I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. If you want to know the fabrics I used from my collection, this is the leather strike. Okay, the color is leather, brown, with the blue, and so I think that makes these crosses really effective and helps that to read. And then again, I did the browns from the collection in this 4 patch and these 4 corners, right? I did this noble smudge, noble being my white, right? Noble smudge for the flying geese, right? So all the flying geese are noble smudge and the leather strike. That's your flying geese, Okay, and then the brown for the 4 patch and the brown for the 4 corners, right? And then the 16 patch is just essentially everything else, with the exception of not including any whites or dark colors, right? There's all the midtones. So that's the way that this goes together. But I'm just going to let this be up here for a minute. And I do this weird thing, and it probably doesn't actually do anything, but it makes me feel good about the whole process. And that once I have it kind of put together with the spray adhesive, I let it kind of cure or dry, right? And so that I know that my layers are put together well, and that there's not going to be a lot of movement once I pull that down off the wall. Plus, I just enjoy having it on the wall. I think it looks really great. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm like gonna set this aside for the balance of the day. So that's all together. Like I said, I'm just gonna kind of let it dry. And I'm going to actually start working on a new project, but I'm going to make that a separate video, as I kind of want to dive into what are the steps before deciding on an art quilt, right? I mean, I kind of talked about the Koi in the Moonlight and some of the process that went into that, but I want to take a much closer look at you know, kind of my process, and kind of show you how I arrive from everything on the internet to a solid idea. Right? And so I hope that you tune in for that. I hope that you're having a good day. And, you know, let's see what we can do. I know that times are a little bit tough for people, especially those who are not working or have their income severely limited at this time. But, you know, hopefully we'll make it through. I know a lot of people won't, right? And so we need to be mindful of them and their families and their needs. And I've always said that if you want to make your day, make somebody else's. So get out there, get busy, and make it a great day. Talk to you soon.